Okay, painters, so now I'm going to add on the details of this painting, and I'm going to do that by adding darkness into the camera. So I'm going to use my smaller brushes, and I'm going to use a couple of them, but I'm mostly going to focus on adding darker colors. So I'm going to mix the violet that I want to work with, and I'm also going to add a little black to it when I need some really strong darks, but I'm going to start with just the medium tones, and it'll just be violet. So if I'm looking at the camera, I'm going to work basically from one side to another, and then if the shape has to adjust and change, it will, and I'll just work with that. So I'm going to start at the top of this. I'm looking at the disc shape up here. It's a little more oval, and it's a little darker. So where I see darkness, I'm just going to paint around these edges. Now this is not the last and only time I'm going to be doing anything here. It's just the next layer. So if I added darkness or lightness to it and it's too strong, this is where I'm going to come back and kind of adjust that. Now you can use gloss medium to help your colors blend in, or water. I'm probably going to use a little bit of water, and I'm just going to use water on a clean brush. So I'm going to dip into a little water and then blend with a clean brush so they kind of fade together. And then add more paint where I need it, but just a little bit here and there to kind of adjust. The outside of this shape is definitely going to need to change. So my smaller brush, oops, I need a little better color. I'm mixing in. And anywhere I made a light mark that's a little too wide, I'm going to come in with a dark color and clean it up. The back of the camera comes down like this. Top of this disc shape might be too wide. There may be more darkness here, more of a medium value there. Top of this should start to fade out, so I'm going to again use water. Get these to blend together a little bit. Probably okay for now. And then there's another little dent on the top of this. And the front of this has a Nikon symbol that I want to make sure shows up. Slowly working forward in the image, and there's lots and lots of details in this camera, and I'm probably going to choose to eliminate most of them, but at this point I'm just going to get a little farther. So this edge looks like it could have a few more highlights in it, so I'm going to grab a little white while I have the small brush and add those highlights back in. And while both paints are wet, the white highlight paint and I have the color on my palette, I'm going to blend these two together. So again, I'm going to use a brush that's just clean and a little wet, and I'll pull those two colors together on my painting so they fade together a little more. So clean wet brush or clean dry brush can blend your two things together if you're adding a highlight, mixing it into a shadow. Looks like it needs to be a little stronger, so I'm going to go back one more time and just make that a little more clear. And then there's some more highlights up here that I'm going to need to reinforce. So a few more little parts in here that I can fuss with. This highlight, there's a second highlight right about here. And I'm going to switch and wipe my brush off and grab more of the original color. I'm mixing the color right on my palette, so I know it's going to have some slight variations, and I should not have a problem with that, but if you want your colors to be exactly the same, you should definitely pre-mix all of them before. The side of this, with a little more lightness. So as I paint on this side, I'm focusing on getting the light values and the dark values to match. think they should be, how I think they should look. I'm all of a sudden going back with white now, more than I want to. I'm gonna stop doing that. I'm gonna make a little more violet and keep focusing on those dark values. So there's a small dark piece that goes through the middle of this. A few other small dark pieces here. So I guess what I'm trying to show you is that you're just building up layers. You're looking for lights and darks, and you're applying lights and darks with color. So anywhere you see the color light, you add white, or a different lighter color. If you add dark, then you add dark, but it doesn't have to be black. I'm going to use my brush with just water on it and blend this part together a little bit, or attempt to. And then I'm wipe this off and brush back over it. So this is fading in a little bit on the side. It does look a little thin, so I'll probably go over it with a different color later on. I don't really like the appearance of that, but I'm gonna, for now, just kind of stick with it. And do the next layer, adjust. So there's a light fade to dark right here too, so I'm gonna use my clean brush. Blend this back together. That's a little lighter. I'm gonna have to be a lot more precise when I paint the inside of the lens, so I'm gonna skip that part right now and go over here to this shape where it's darker. So you kind of see how the values are starting to come together, but I'm not quite done. So this does take time. This should give you an idea of how to blend the colors back together.